Thank you, Chair of the SRC, Madam Lynn Mangich, Chair of IQLTC, my good friend Kidin Kiragu, members of Public Service Commission, the entire SRC commissioners and management and staff members, members from Public Service, ladies and gentlemen from before the state. I am very honored and pleased to be here as we set the tone and the stage for the third OHB conference that will happen from the 15th to the 17th next week. This topic is extremely important. I must say that I have been part of this conversation right from 2014 in the first OHB conference that I helped to put together. And I must say that for us, we have seen minimal improvements. It is really, way off from where we ought to be. Let me just put into context what reduction from 43% to 35% means. As the chair has said, it means 80 billion shillings. What that means is that I'm just looking at some of the sectors, like the road sector. Our road sector is barely moving at all. Projects are abandoned all over the country. People who are working on these projects in terms of jobs are jobless. The exchequer, which was receiving VAT and other taxes from these projects, it is showing in the gap in terms of our revenues. So if we can, for example, guarantee that 80 billion extra will be added just to the road sector, year on year, then we could restart a program that has got a very wide multiplier effect on many sectors of our economy and in the quality of living of our people. This topic of wage bill, it should be seen in a wider context of the public service, because we're not discussing here the salaries of the people in the private sector. We are not discussing the salaries of the people in the informal sector. We are discussing about 983,000 people. 983,000 people. Let's call them a million for argument purpose. In a country of 54 million, that we consume our wages, our salaries, our emoluments, consume 43% of money collected. So if today we collect 100 shillings, 1 million of us will take home 43 shillings. The rest of the 53 million will take home 57 million shillings. This is a question of morality. It's a question of ethics. It's a question of, it's not even a question of economics and other high-sounding principles. It's a question of selfishness. How can 1 million people be so selfish? To just go, how? Imagine 100 people are given 100 shillings. And 1 million, and 10 people get away with half of that. Is that really fair? Do we really have any mathematical or realistic chance of going to heaven, really? When we are so selfish? But then let's look at it conversely. The other 53 million people, they need to have their heads strict. How can you agree to this? How can you agree to show the 1 million people for so long? It is a question of morality on the side of the 1 million, but really it's a question of common sense. And for the 53 million, they need to check in the hospital today. I said, how can you allow 1 million people to continue gobbling money that you you select, that you raise from your sweat. So that's really is really the context of this. It's not an academic discussion. It's not an theoretical discussion. It's a question of morality. It's a question of ethics. It's a question of fairness, and it's a question of public expectation, and really the capacity. As a friend of mine by the name of Kato Keegan says, I'm inviting the 53 million who are shouldering the 1 million to exercise their capacity to get annoyed. Yeah, that is what I'm doing. I'm inviting them to exercise their capacity to get annoyed and ask, how can you agree to carry 1 million people? That from morning to around 1 o'clock, you'll be working for us, for me, for 1 million people. And then only some few hours in the afternoon, you'll work for yourself. That really is a context within which we are discussing this. This discussion also needs to be seen in the light of the wider economic discussion. And I will just segment that briefly into 5 pillars of how I see it. The first pillar is on the our monetary front, or the monetary policy, on the monetary performance. And ladies and gentlemen, on that front, we are doing extremely well. Our shilling, as you can see, has recovered. Inflation is within check. I just had a chat last evening with the governor of Central Bank in preparation for this, briefing. And, we are even raising, and if we continue the current trajectory, we are going to increase our import cover by increasing our reserves to 4 to 4.5 months cover, which is very good by all standards. So on the monetary front, the governor of Central Bank is doing an amazing job. Inflation is under control. Our exchange rate is okay. Our forex cover is building up, is improving. And just by deliberate policies from this administration, by the reduction or by the strengthening of the shilling on our debt obligation, within the last 1 month, we have shilled off 1.5 trillion shillings in debt, simply on the back of an improved, currency, which is very good. Unfortunately, the gains on the monetary front, which is my first pillar of this, services, is washed away by our poor performance on the fiscal space, which is my second pillar. And this discussion today is really about our fiscal management and our fiscal space. As you can see here, just salaries alone, with a wage bill, 43% of our revenues, 7 to 7.5% of our GDP. But just oppose that against the other bigger elephant in the room, which is debt. Debt comes and takes away the other 64%. So what are we saying here? I thought in the afternoon Kenyans will work for themselves. So in the morning they're working for me and Nim and Gich and you and the 1 million people. In the afternoon they work for debt. It's not even enough. From the time they wake up to the time they sleep, they are just working for debt and 1 million vultures. Let me call them vultures, because they are vultures, we are vultures. Yeah? That is what we are. Scavengers. We are scavengers, we are vultures, we are hyenas. Because how can 1 million people, 53 million work for 1 million, and then in the afternoon, they work for debt. So, I have not even counted our O&M. And by the way, this question of O&M is also interesting, because who consumes O&M? Ask yourself. What about the rich people? Is it people in the private sector? Who consumes O&M? Still these 1 million vultures. Still these 1 million scavengers. We are still the same people. So in the morning, Kenyans work for mandazi, for salaries. In the afternoon, they work for debt. In the evening, even when we are sleeping, they work for our mandazi and our flowers. That simply put, that is what's happening. That Kenyans are slaves of us, of this 1 million people. We are the people who take debt. We are the people who are paid salaries. We are the people who buy mandazis and flowers. And I'm telling you, this is not sustainable. Time will come when Kenyans will say, the rest of them, Waswahili wanasema mjinga kirefuka, mwaremi mashakani. And Kenyans will wake up one day and ask these questions. Yeah, they will exercise their capacity to get angry. So, now, we have to do something. We have to do something on our salaries. We have to do something on our debt. And most important thing, we have to do something about the mandazis and the flowers that we consume, saying that, this is, supporting the hustlers and all this kind of thing. No, it is just not sustainable. And that is the truth. And I'm saying this in the context of what is happening, strikes, union activity. Please consider, when you see somebody asking for a pay rise, remind them that, excuse me, you are a vulture. Excuse me, you are a scavenger. Excuse me, you stand zero chance of going to heaven. Because this is the reality of what we are facing. That pillar is on, of course, related to this, is on our public investment. That because we are spending, I have measured everything. I have measured our salaries. I have measured our mandazis. I have measured our debt. I have not mentioned roads. I have not mentioned water. I have not mentioned agriculture. Our public investment, which is called by, I think, unfortunate term, development. Development is nothing but public investment. And because now we have got nothing left. One, from the mathematics I've given, is not even enough for the debt, for the salaries, and for the mandazi. We start borrowing from there. Two, to carry out public investment, we borrow to invest. Because all our development budget is actually fully funded by borrowing. Yeah? You used to call them donors before. I have not seen any donors anymore. I only know people who are lending us money for them to make profit. So let no one call those people donors anymore. They are lenders who are in business. And they are very happy to find people who are foolish enough to continue spending everything they have, going out there to borrow, and they borrow at very good and exorbitant interest rates. So because of all this competition for our domestic resources, for our taxes, for the money we raise, therefore we have to go to those people who are in business to be able to lend us money for doing our public investment. And so we find that now, as we speak, as of now, and we are now in the fourth quarter, in another less than 80 days, we will cross the books for the financial year 2023-2024. Our exchequer releases, listen to this, our exchequer releases for purposes of recurrent expenditure, including mandazis and salaries, start at 75%. Very good. Because we are now at 75% of the financial year. So that's mathematics matching. Our public investment, so-called development budget releases, as we speak, is 16%. So we'll see again how selfish we are. Money comes here to Jeremy, hours for Mandazi and for salaries and for trips and for all this. It comes on time. 75% of the year, 75% of the releases. The one for 53 million is a development budget. First of all, the money is not there, the money is borrowed, and up to now, we have only released 16% of development budget, with 75% elapsed time as we head towards the end of the financial year. So tell me, even if in the next 80 days we release this money for development expenditure, when is it going to be spent? How do we wait until 80 days, something we didn't do in the other 280 days? And then people wonder why they complain about corruption. The KPI for most MDS from now until the end of the year, they will be judged even in our performance contract, which I'm responsible for. They will be judged on absorption. So there will be competition to consume. People will get warning letters. Why did you spend? Because all the money will now come in this quarter, in these 80 days. Procurement will be done left, right, and center. Funny things will happen, and then you complain about corruption. So I am trying to demonstrate the nexus between overemphasis on our recurrent expenditure, our emphasis on PE, personal emolument, our emphasis on debt servicing, vis-a-vis a priority on development, because it is actually the breeding ground for corruption. Because when you have got so much to spend within such a small window, you can't even keep your eyes on the ball, because a lot of activity is going to happen between now and I'm asking you to read it to every Tuesday. You buy that newspaper called My God. Now it might even increase the pages in the next 10 weeks. Because of the number of procurement, tenders, and everything being announced now. Because all of a sudden, money that was not found is going to be found. Conveniently and deliberately. It's going to be found. So that now, there's so much happening that you can't even our auditors, both internal, now external, cannot be able to keep their eyes on the ball. So really, that is really the impact of this composition. That when we spend every penny on salaries, on O&M, on debt servicing, on PE, the casualty is our public investment, the casualty is our development budget, and the direct results and consequence of this is nothing but corruption. And so therefore, this topic has got wider implication on the larger economy. The last pillar is now the 53 million people. The private sector activity accounts for 70% of our GDP. Our public sector budgets, represented here by budget, represent around 40% of our GDP. Unfortunately, it is this public investment, so-called development budget, and some element of O&M that has a direct nexus with the private sector activity, because government still remains the largest buyer, is the largest consumer of goods and services. So when you start off development budget, this has a direct impact on the private sector, as indeed demonstrated with example I've given in our road sector, because these projects ultimately they touch on contractors, employees, suppliers, fuel, and all that kind of thing. So when that sector as important as roads grinds to a halt the way it has right now, what that means is that the rest of private sector economic activity equally grinds to a halt. That's number one. And on the second front is a tragedy of policy, because not only do we then starve the private sector of that ignition key that is required from the development budget, but then because we have no incentive to focus on policy. That is why you find that our policy are not moving fast enough. Realizing now that we don't have that luxury to use the public sector space, you would think now we are putting every effort in igniting private sector activity. And that's why our policies now, because we don't have the luxury of exchequer, we don't have the luxury of the fiscal space, that we need now to focus on policies that grow the economy, grow the GDP, without depending on resources from the exchequer. So what are we doing as a government to mitigate these issues? One, this conversation is part of that. The focus on the wage bill, the focus on what this means, the focus on this drive towards 35%, the focus on 80 billion shillings that we can save for roads and other things if we really achieve this 80%. As a pursuant to this conference also, the head of public service, the office of the head of public service, and my ministry are partnering to undertake a very serious, radical, and surgical reform of our public service. I want to assure you, I am not in pursuit of being popular. And even if I was to be popular, it's not with you people. It's with the 53 million people. So sadly, I am going to, myself and the head of public service are going to spearhead an effort, an initiative that is going to afflict the comfortable, like you are comfortable, I'm going to afflict you. But it is not in vain. It is so that I can be able to comfort the afflicted, which is a 53 million people. So, people are asking, I've had the commissioner here use the word audacious. I love that word. I want to assure you, Commissioner, we will be more than audacious. The way we are audacious in removing subsidies, and now we are enjoying the benefit. The way we say we're not going to subsidize consumption, and now UNGA is at 100. The way we say we are not going to have an artificial life support machine on our currency, and now it is building muscle. The way we are saying we're not going to keep subsidizing fuel so that markets can take their own level is the same way we are going to face this dragon of a bloated, unproductive, and inefficient public service and save us from this ignominy of 1 million people riding on the back of 2 million people. We will do it. And I'm just saying this, and I'm saying here, ahead of the conference, that we will undertake the most radical, the most comprehensive, and the most audacious public sector reform not seen in this country since the one of Kibaki in 2005. We'll do it because there must be that generation who says that we are going to live for posterity, that we want to have, generational equity. Because what we are doing today is nothing but building generational inequity. As will be okay, then what about our children? What about the generations to come? So I want to assure you, and you've seen it in this administration, when you put our eyes on something, doesn't matter how unpopular it will become, doesn't matter, whether people will condemn us, doesn't matter whether it will be called Sakayo, we will cut this public service. Yeah? Because it's the right thing to do. And time has come. Things did get here where we are. Madam Gitao, we were with you in 2014. It's 10 years. Same topics. I promise you, I will not be here in 2034. Standing here to say the same thing. We will do something, and we will do something now. And we will do something because it is the right thing to do. We will do something to cut on our expenditure. We will undertake serious process engineering across government. We will review the way we manage our establishment. And by the way, we are going to have news soon, probably by the time the president addresses the conference next week. And those people who are basking by saying, oh, I want to recruit because I have an approved establishment. We will start from scratch. And we will start by condemning all those establishments and relooking them afresh. And somebody has to justify this idea that replacing bodies for bodies. Somebody has retired, replace. Somebody has passed on, replace. Without asking, maybe that attrition is opportunity to look at things and do things different. Yeah? It's not an automatic entitlement. It's not an inheritance. It's not an inheritance. Oh, but I had 5, so give me 5. Did you need the 5 in the first place? That's why digitalization, what we are doing around e-citizen, what we are going to do around public service reform and re-engineering need to be seen in this context. Alongside this is one side, of course, we have got the problem, and I want to submit our problem is not the wage bill per se in normal circumstances. Our problem is wage bill vis-a-vis the monster of debt. Yeah? Even if wage bill grows at the same rate of GDP, we are just lying to ourselves. Our wage bill needs to shrink. Because either the government shrinks or wage bill shrinks, our debt shrinks. Now we have already borrowed, and we are really in this situation. So debt will remain constant at best, or marginally, improvement. But this one of wage bill and revenue is what are the tools that are at our disposal, because we cannot compromise development, because development is not for us as public servants. Development is for the 53 million who are the people of this country. So therefore, other than just cutting on our expenditure, looking at our productivity, looking at our processes, we are also going to really focus on ensuring that we maximize the revenue collection. And we need to ask ourselves, I'm sure Karl Marx must be very happy. Even Lenin must be very happy, wherever they are, looking at the best communist country in the world called Kenya. We are really totaling to a communist state. We are totaling towards a welfare state. You count. One taxpayer, free primary education, free secondary education, free fertilizer, free social protection, money for share of revenue for counties, which is not negotiable, money for CDF for our members of parliament, which is not negotiable, free sanitary towels, free, name it. One taxpayer, everything free. It's about time also to have a conversation about whether Kenya can afford this welfare society. And it's not about this government, it's not a previous government, it is a product of this entitlement that we have put ourselves in this role. I really don't know why anyone would want to be the president of such a country. Where you open your balance sheet, your P&L, with minus 43%, your mishahara shine. Kilo, education, 670 billion. For both levels in the past, 670 billion. Kwenda, imeenda. 1.1 trillion salaries, imeenda. Ongeza ya social protection ya wazee, imeenda. Ongeza ya fertilizer, imeenda. So what is there even to learn? So it is not about me or you or the president of this country or this government. It's a conversation that we need to have as a country of just knowing where we are. And when we talk about we are in a hole, that's exactly what we mean. That even before we decide what to do, the non-discretionary items, debts non-discretionary, pension non-discretionary, our welfare state items non-discretionary. Nothing we can do about them. It's time to really face this and say it's okay to hide our heads in the sand like the proverbial ostrich and assume everything is okay. But this is where we are right now. And by the way, within this context, two things. One, people want more salaries. Two, people also don't want to pay taxes. Three, people want everything free. Mimi ndio hama hiki. Hautaki kulipa ushuru. Hautaki kukata expenditure. You want free everything. From where? Maybe we need to look for a tree which grows money. Then you can go and shake that tree and get money from that tree. That is really, and that is why really I want to applaud the president for being armed by one weapon called truth. That he will always tell the truth of where we are without sugarcoating at all times. Because it is not the mirror that gave you the pimple. If you look at yourself in the mirror before you have a pimple, don't break the mirror. By calling the president Zakayo, or telling him off for saying that we can't afford this and that, you're just breaking the mirror. It is not the mirror that gave you the pimple. Go and look for the underlying reason. And those are the underlying reasons. They are not collecting revenue. We are overspending. Our wage bill is high. We have got a welfare society that needs to be funded left and right, etc. That is a country that we have. Yeah, that is the reality of our times. We are looking at some of the topics that they have been spoken about by the speakers before. The issue of revenues, the issue of state corporations, which I have to admit, yes, and we have admitted that we have gone really wrong. The president has had this conversation as we speak, using what we are calling the Treasury Settlement Account. For the first time, we are going to have a treasury function as the national treasury, because as of today, we are the only treasury in the world without a treasurer. A treasurer, for those people like me who come from the private sector, is a guy who looks at your balances all over. and then decide where is this money, this one move from here, take there, take there. So now we've agreed that we're going to have a treasury function that superintends over all balances of government, both from a ministerial level and from a state corporation level, so that we can be able to, optimize on the balances we have. Not people taking deposits from our parastatals, then coming back to lend them to us in the form of treasury bills. That will not happen. And we are audacious enough to stop that through this treasury settlement account. And the framework we've created is not of starving commercial banks of these balances, but really having that large screen at the national treasury, whereby we say, why are you sitting on this 10 billion? Or that this 10 billion can be optimized here and there. So that's one of the things we are doing. We are overhauling our regime for the public-private partnership. So that, as I have said, that we don't have luxury within the fiscal space. The only way out for us is to look at the private sector, how we can leverage on the private sector resources to be able to grow this country, how we can revamp our PPP so that our FDI can start working, how we can reignite our engine of growth through focusing on manufacturing, through focusing on export, so that we get that money that we did have. And then we are also looking at that whole issue of corruption, which I've talked about, and the e-government procurement. And the president has, directed, formed a committee, or looking at this particular issue from the National Treasury. That now, beginning the next financial year, all procurement in government will be done online through what we call the e-auction, and this will be a very major, advantage and win, especially for our young people who are digital. So those papers which you are filling, or pre-qualification, or tendering, everything will be an option, especially for the common use items. Whether you are pre-qualified or not pre-qualified, just go in there. If the system says the lowest spend is 10 shillings, you can even amend and put 9 shillings. So there is visibility, and all of you and all Kenyans can be able to see what we are going to do through our EGP platform. So all these measures, including what we are doing on the e-citizen, is based on stopping the wastage through corruption. We are going to do the surgical reform of the parastatals. We are going to maximize. We are going to also rein in our state corporations. The numbers you've spoken here, you need to look at them from a pie chart perspective. 980, or let's go to 1 million people. The people within ministries, even within national government, are only 110,000, 130,000 to be precise. 400,000 are in the state corporations. So even if I perfect this space around ministries, and I don't rein in on the state corporation, it's a zero-sum game. And so therefore, especially for the HR function, that the HR function for the national government includes, and I'm sending this message clearly to our state corporations, that the way we are going to reform the ministries in terms of the HR function, people, hiring, establishment, is the same way we are going to have control of our state corporations, following in the footsteps of what Professor Juguna Dungu is doing about the financial control that really looks at the whole spectrum from the ministries to the state corporations. And I really want to ask the Council of Governors to join us in this as we look at financial management within ministries, within state corporations, also within our county government, where we really have a problem of ghost workers. Some payrolls are being run outside the system. And I've said that I want to have this discussion, especially next week with the controller budget. If someone is running manual payroll, why would you continue to send the money? Why? Why can't you just say stop? I can ask for that job for 1 day, then I come back. Because I will not send one single penny for any county government that is running a payroll outside IPPD or the approved payroll system, because that is not your money and you don't have that discretion. And already we're in a bad situation, so we cannot continue living further. So I can go on and on, but really, Chair and team, I want to tell you on behalf of the President, on behalf of the government, on behalf of the Head of Public Service, we are fully committed. The President has said that all cabinet secretaries, all principal secretaries must attend all the sessions from Monday till Wednesday, because This is a time bomb, and we don't have the luxury of time. We have to solve this problem once and for all, not only for us, but for the future generations. Thank you very much.